It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. Today, we welcome an executive from the NFL ranks. The NFL football operations team is excited to share this year's NFL HBCU programming that includes developing relationships, presenting career opportunities, and business initiatives with historically black colleges and universities across the country. Natara Holloway is the Vice President for Business Operations and Strategy for NFL football operations. She has more on what will be discussed at the second NFL HBCU Open House on this live stream of Listen In with KNN right now. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. We bring you the biggest guests, great analysis, and the hottest sports stories in the nation's capital and beyond. And we bring it to you live. Welcome to this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday and welcome into another live stream edition of Listen In with KNN Sports Talk Radio Show and Podcast with me, your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. Now, we usually don't do Wednesdays, but we had a very special guest. We made some accommodations for her. And if you guys haven't heard already from the music, today we'll be talking about HBCUs and their partnerships with the National Football League. So yes, we're talking historically black colleges and universities. As you guys know, this is near and dear to my heart as the daughter of a Gramblinite, and all of my aunts went to Jackson State University. So I am literally the bloodline of HBCUs. And so this is why it's so important to talk about. We're seeing lots more HBCU talent in the National Football League. If you guys don't know, I mean, they have a long storied history. Some of the greatest players in football came from our HBCUs. And you can even just look at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. A fun fact, at the last count, roughly 10% of all players in the Hall of Fame attended HBCUs. That's 33 out of 326 members. I mean, the list goes on. Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, Willie Lanier, Mel Blunt. I mean, it's just so many great players. We want to continue this pipeline, but also not just on the football field, but also careers off of the football field, getting into the National Football League. So that's why I have the special guest with me. If you guys have been following on social media, there's a very big event going on. And also in the news, if you guys can see, even NASCAR is getting involved in the action. FedEx actually revealed a new NASCAR race car design and a multi-million-dollar pledge for 4 HBCU schools in Tennessee and Mississippi. We love to see it. You guys know my hashtag and my motto on social media. We want to keep feeding the next generation of talent. And there's a lot of talent that comes from HBCUs. And so we're going to get into it. You guys know my energy is hype right now. Because look, if you go to a HBCU, if you've ever been to a HBCU game, you guys know you have to bring the energy because it's not just about the game on the football field. Joining me today is none other than Natara Holloway. She is the Vice President of Business Operations and Strategy for NFL's football operations. So without further ado, please help me welcome her to the show. Natara, how are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you doing today? Yes, I love your energy.
Thank you so much. Look, I had to bring it. I'm excited. And I know you've been busy. I mean, there's so much going on all the time in the NFL. We're, of course, preparing for the regular season, but you have been pretty much behind the scenes. And I don't know if people have been following along on social media, but the 2021 NFL and HBCU Open House Natara. So I want to talk about that, but I do have to do a wellness check with you first. I love to do that with my guests. So how are you feeling? How are you doing? How has this week been for you?
Well, so we're based out of New York, and we actually took the opportunity to come out to LA with the HBCU conference commissioners. And so who can be sad in LA? The sun, the beach, it's just a more laid back kind of life. And so my energy is amazing. My head is in a great space. We're going into this weekend before football. You can't get any better than that.
Yeah, it's literally like the perfect time for football fans. It's like the calm before the storm. And then you have the storm because you're in LA, so you only have sunny skies and palm trees. We're a bit jealous here in the DC area where it's just raining. But you'll bring the sunshine to us. Sorry, so I'm not worried about that. And so as I understand it, you guys have just wrapped this up, right? It was August 30th and August 31st. Yep. You guys have all of the HBCU commissioners come in from the CIAA, the MEAC, the SWAC, and the SIAC. So first off, let's just talk about the open house and the overall experience. Have you gotten any feedback yet about the experience, and just why is this so important for the National Football League to continue to develop?
So the open house itself, just to talk a little bit about that, we did this because so many people were like, well, what are you guys doing in the space of HBCUs? As we all know, in the last year, there has been a lot of corporate attention to HBCUs, and I'm like, bring it on, welcome it, we welcome it. But at the same time, for the National Football League, where we get a lot of criticism in a number of spaces regarding diversity, we've been doing partnerships with HBCUs for years. As you mentioned, a lot of the players that are coming off of the field and going into the NFL, but we don't necessarily highlight and showcase the individuals who go off from HBCUs and come into the actual business office. And so we have a number of individuals, a lot of alumni that come into the business sector. And so a lot of people were like, what do you guys do in the HBCU space? And so we started doing this sort of upfront, if you will, or an open house to let people know exactly what the opportunities are. But the bigger part of it is just so that we can listen. So last year's that we started this with was actually virtual. And so it wasn't an opportunity for us to get into a deep dive. So over the course of the year, the 4 conference commissioners in the NFL would talk, and we would just say, like, what are the gaps? What are the opportunities? What are the things that we're missing? What are the things we can do better? And so for this year, we actually did a hybrid approach where we still had the open house that was virtual, but we invited all 4 of the conference commissioners, and they had representatives here. They did an awesome session with Steve Weich from NFL Network. They sat with Troy Vincent. They sat with our HBCU team to sit and think through what are some opportunities for the next year. But then we had an opportunity to sit down and just tell them everything that we're going to do, the successes, the failures, how do we get better? And so it was almost like a 2-day workshop of us listening primarily, and then trying to come up with opportunities for us to get better over the next year.
That's exciting, like you said. And I think it's important for people to understand that you guys were listening. You weren't assuming these needs. You were listening to the commissioners of what they're seeing in their conferences and what they need. And I think every conference is individual, but also HBCUs are unique in that aspect. And also, I do have to shout out Jackie McWilliams. She's been on this show, a great friend of the show. She's phenomenal. I saw her pictures on social media, full of life.
I'm giving her shout outs because she was helping me to post on social media. She was teaching me a thing or two.
Because people were searching. They're like, wait, we'll work on that. But just going back to the open house, it's great to hear. And if you're able to share some of the insights, what did you hear from listening that these commissioners were offering? Like, what do they need? How can the NFL better partner with them? Where are we going forward?
Well, I think a lot of people often think, because you're hearing all of these numbers that have been thrown out over the past year, millions of dollars. People are donating millions of dollars to HBCUs. And what was really interesting for the conversation that we had, we sat around the table and we were starting to think of what are the things that are unique and challenges for the individual conferences and the individual schools. It wasn't about money. It was about opportunity, access, exposure, getting the student athletes aware of the things that could potentially lead to careers in sports and or football. And so that was what we were really primarily focused on, is job creation, job awareness, job readiness. So that was number one. The other thing was resources. So, not again, not in necessarily in the area of financial resources, but it was around equipment for student athletes, making sure that there's equitable equipment, and that student athletes aren't refurbing all the time, but they're getting new equipment. And how can partners help us in that challenge? And then we were also hearing about the new things like NIL and what that means to the student athletes, and also their families and handlers, what that's going to mean for them as well, and making sure that everybody's educated in that process. But I think the biggest focus, like I said, was jobs, and that we're super excited about that. And not just jobs in your traditional football spaces, but marketing. And we have a new event that we kicked off this year, I guess, the Madden Tournament, the HBCU Madden Tournament. And it's that's $1 billion industry that our students need to understand. It's not just being a game developer or a gamer. Somebody needs to put the events on. Somebody needs to market it. Somebody needs to sell it. And so just trying to that opportunity, that access, that's what we're really trying to make sure that we're getting across to the students and the student athletes.
That's huge, because I hear access all the time. People just say they want a chance. They want the access to the opportunity. And what they do with the opportunity is in their hands. But I'm glad to hear that. And you said jobs. That reigns with everybody. We can never have enough jobs, especially coming out of school, right? It's hard to get out of school. And especially, I think, in the sports field, it's not the easiest thing to kind of just hop in and go get a job. We wish it were that easy. But I think this is when you have those kind of programs or partnerships early on, you're kind of building your network, your net worth. And when you come out of college, you come out strong, which is what we want to see from these great graduates when they're graduating from these colleges and universities. I do want to get into the HBCU Madden Tournament as a gamer myself, but I'm glad you touched on so many different things. And I know you talked about Madden NFL 21 and the HBCU Tournament players. We have players from the HBCUs from all conferences, you all, the CIAA, the MEAC, the SIAC, and the SWAC. And there was a single elimination qualifier back in November of 2020, right? Top 4 games from each HBCU conference. A total of 16 players advanced to the Madden NFL 21 HBCU Tournament ahead of this. Look
at you. You are a gamer. You know all about it. I love it.
I tell you, if I could have went back in school and went to, I would have been in that tournament. But just talk about the experience like that. I mean, I think that is huge. I think gaming is something that, unfortunately, some people think are getting on later to the train. But if you're hearing our interview now, you better hop on now. But what a unique experience to be a part of that in college. And like you said, it might open your eyes. Maybe you thought you just wanted to game, but maybe you do want to be a part of the software development. Maybe you do want to throw the tournament in your hometown. Let's bring it to Washington, D.C. Let's bring it to Los Angeles. Let's bring it to a smaller town. Let's bring it to Jackson, Mississippi. So I think it's great to have those kind of programs that the NFL is leading. And going back to just what the NFL is saying, like, we do have these programs. How can we help get the exposure out? Natara,
we're working with great partners in the marketplace. Results Inc. is out of Atlanta, is helping us. PPHD out of DC actually is helping us to make sure that we are giving students the opportunity to participate. But like I said, it's not only about that, it's about that job creation. So over the next few months, we're looking to do careers in gaming, careers in esports. It's amazing to me because I also had to be educated, the difference between gaming and esports. And a lot of people use those interchangeably when they're not. And so it's like, how do we help people to understand this is a new area, that the playing field is ripe for diversity. It's right for new thought, new leadership. And so we want to make sure that students from HBCUs are right there at this nascent stage. And so over the next few months, we will start to do careers in that space and have them talk to folks that are in that space and what are the opportunities, because we don't like to assume everybody knows. Like we don't like to assume that everybody knows that you could be, a sound engineer at NFL Network, or a PR person within, the NFL films, or, that sort of thing. We don't assume anywhere that people understand all of the intricacies of this business. So we want to make sure people understand and hear that. And like you said that each conference, each school is different. We need to make sure that we keep that at the top of mind, because there are, certain HBCUs that have access to people that can help them explain, but there are some that don't. And so we want to make sure that we're tailoring conversations, we're tailoring our events to make sure that we're getting to everybody and scalable.
I think that's huge, because especially since I'm based in DC, I think the HBCU that everyone talks about, and rightfully so, is Howard University, right? It's here in DC. Lots of celebrities went there. So many celebrities' kids even go there now. But again, there's so many more HBCUs. Again, each school is very different and unique based on where they're located, the students coming there, and kind of the money being funneled into it. And I think, again, there's a new emphasis on HBCUs, but we've been here for a long time. They have long histories and long legacies, and we want to feed into that. And I'm glad that you mentioned kind of the football careers. And I know you guys have the HBCU Careers and Football Forum, but also the NFL Virtual Speaker Series. I want to make sure all the listeners are understanding the difference between these two things. And if there are HBCU students listening to this interview right now, or parents, Natara, of HBCU students listening right now, how can they get involved in these programs? Where do they find the information? Who do they reach out to at the colleges? Are they able to access you, Natara? Like, what's that process?
So no, that's a fantastic question. So yes, through their colleges. So it is specifically for HBCU students. So we go through the college conference commissioners to be respectful. And in fact, they're the ones who help us to identify students. For the Careers and Football Forum, it is an application-based event. And so you actually do have to apply to attend that. Last year, of course, was virtual. But in extension, as you just mentioned, was the fact that we did virtual speaker series off of that as well. So it was open to all HBCUs. We did Rock the Vote. It was open to all HBCUs. And then also the other thing that I want to mention is it's more like a STEM program. It's a pseudo hackathon that we do with the HBCU Battle of the Brains. And so that any school can actually sign up to participate in as well. Students from any school can sign up to participate. So there's many ways to actually participate. And one of the things that we're looking forward to, thanks to Dr. Jackie, actually, our Commissioner Jackie, she gave us a phenomenal idea, and we're super excited. Can't reveal it just yet. I'll have to come back on and reveal it for you. We're working out the bugs right now, but it's going to be huge. I mean, when I tell you things that came out of this session that we had yesterday with Commissioner McWilliams and Dr. Thomas, I was literally like, oh, I have an idea. And somebody else was like, oh, I have an idea. And I think what we're trying to do is also let the students become authors of their own life. And so how do we not just as an adult say, this is what I think you guys should be doing. This is a case study that you should be doing. But how do we get them to help and author their own experience? Right. It's coming. It's coming.
We're going to have you back on to reveal that. We're not going to get away with that.
I'm excited.
Well, what I'm hearing you talk about, which I think so many people ask for, is essentially you invited them to come have a seat at the table. And so often we have the conversation of feeling like we're not even invited to those tables. So I think the fact that you not only invited them to sit, but you gave them food and invited them to listen, for you all to listen to them, I think that's huge. And then not only now they're able to leave the table, and you all are leaving the table with the knowledge and wisdom that they gave you to be able to take it back to the NFL office and find more ways that you can better strengthen the partnerships with HBCUs. And you guys have been, as you said, you've been doing this for a long time. I know the NFL has also partnered with the Road and Fellows Initiative, also talking about HBCUs, Morehouse College, and the Ross Initiative in Sports for Equality in the NFL. And I think there are a lot of people actually go on and see how the NFL has been behind these things, maybe not always in the forefront, but they are there supporting them in whatever ways they can. The Black Football College Hall of Fame, which is something I think many people are excited about. Now, later in the show, we'll talk about the game that's coming up as well, Natara, but so many different initiatives that are going on with these HBCUs. I think you guys, it seems like you guys are trying to look to continue to grow them, because I think, again, we want to grow the visibility. And I think it is a big conversation that's happening, not just at HBCUs, but I'd say just honestly around the country, as we just look for honestly opportunities for young people to get involved in sports and in careers. That's what we want to do at the end of the day. And again, just hearing your passion for it, I feel like the NFL knew the right person for the job, and I can only tell it's going to keep growing, right? It's going to keep evolving, and I hope anybody out there that's listening, you all are seeing just how huge this is. And I want to talk about, where did your passion come from, Tara, to kind of get into this work and working with HBCUs? Because as I know it, you're a graduate of the University of Houston, and let me make sure I give you your flowers, magna cum laude graduate from the University of Houston. I'm gonna make sure I give you those accolades because you work for them. And so tell me, where did your love kind of just falling in love with HBCUs and wanting to make sure that you give back to HBCUs, where would you say that kind of stemmed from and come from for you? Where's your inspiration?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I went to University of Houston, right down the street from TSU. right down the street from Prairie View. My nephew went to Prairie View. It's one of those things where you don't grow up in Texas without knowing HBCUs. Houston-Tillotson, my cousin graduated from there. Everybody has a connection. And one of the things that Dr. Thomas said yesterday that was so impactful for me, somebody who went to a PWI, is that you didn't have to go to an HBCU to also impact an HBCU, right? And so if we only relied on individuals who had gone there, and that's being a Black person in general, if we're only relying on your one sort of tribe, if you will, then you're only talking to yourself. And so it is incumbent upon people who did not go to HBCUs, Black, white, or anything in between, to also impact HBCUs, not because necessarily they need it, just because they have such a strong history and legacy and a pool of talent that it's not, let's just get on the board of HBCUs. Look at the talent. Look at our vice president who comes from HBCU. It's undeniable the talent that you're getting out of these schools. And so it's not necessarily, I hope that companies don't watch this and say, I want to, HBCUs are the next best thing. Like you said, they've been around for years. The talent has been around for years. There have been ups and downs in students going to HBCUs, and now is the time where people can really get behind and support the education and the legacy of Black people. And that's where my passion comes from. I am such an advocate for showcasing the talent that African Americans and students of color bring to the table. And that's what HBCUs do. So there's a synergy there that just can't be denied. And so when you look at that and the impact that we can actually make from a diversity perspective, sign me up every day, because this is you look at this and you just get proud. When I look at all the students that we've had come in that are actually graduates of HBCUs, and I had an interview earlier and they were like, well, what about all the students who don't get to go play in the NFL? I'm like, they do. You just play in a different way. You might not be playing football, but you're businessing football. And so we have a lot of talent. Spectacular talent that's coming out of these schools and giving, their HBCUs, making them proud, very proud alumni. And so my passion comes from I'm in the community of it, but also because it's such an inclusive conversation, right at the cusp of everything that we do in the football operations group anyway around football and inclusion. HBCU is one part of that, but we're looking at how do we get a more diverse pipeline for every part of football, whether it's a GM, head coach, marketing intern, etc.
Yes, and I think that's what it's all about. Look, diversity wins, inclusion matters. James Brown said that best. And again, creating this pipeline, we always want there to be more opportunities. And I think we should always leave it better than how we entered it. And I think that's exactly what you're doing. And, hearing your passion. So I also went to a PWI, but I mean, growing up in the DMV area, we had Bowie State, Morgan State, Howard. Like I went everywhere. And again, since my parents, my dad went to an HBCU and all my aunts went to an HBCU, that's actually how I fell in love with the game of football. And so classics were what I grew up with. So I love the game of football early on. My dad taught me everything about Grambling very early on, and now I'm an honorary Gramblinite. And that to say that, I covered the nation's classic football game probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and this is when John Wall was in DC, and it was his first time going to an HBCU football game. And he just said after that experience, he said, "Wow," he's like, "I almost wish I would have went to an HBCU." And this is John Wall, Kentucky, but it was just like that. You got the band going, and he was known to go to Howard Homecoming here, and I tell all the time now, like you said, you don't have to necessarily go to one to support one, right? It's like any cause that you want to support. It might not be personal to you, but I mean, it might just ignite a passion in you, and that you're investing in the future. And you talked about, I think a lot of people do focus on if HBCU players are drafted, right? The draft is a big thing. I know this past year people were pretty mad that no HBCU players were necessarily drafted and through the National Football League. But I think you're right. I think it's what else is going on beyond that. Now, of course, we do want to see some guys drafted. I'll be honest about that. We know there's some talent there. And then this next 2022 NFL draft, there's a lot of great prospects. I think we can also say COVID probably did play a role last year because we know about all the cancellation of games and what the conferences had to go through. When you don't have that exposure, it can be harder. But I think what you said was spot on. Like you said, there's other ways to get these people involved in sports. And there's so many jobs in sports. And Natara, I don't think people realize realize it, but like, I mean, you have the grounds crew, right? I mean, you have the statisticians, like they're doing numbers that I could never do in my head, but then they're journalists, and it's making sure that we are exposing them to these opportunities. And I think especially when you don't go to a big school that has a lot of funding, well, how can we make sure we're trying to basically like level the playing field, right?
Right.
For everyone, so they can hopefully enter the job field feeling equally as prepared as their counterpart.
And that's a phenomenal point, because it's wanting to make sure that people are prepared in sports and entertainment. And as I'm sure you are well aware of, it is about who you know. This is a highly networked industry. And so if you're coming from, some communities that don't necessarily have individuals who work within the NFL office, or you don't necessarily see the Natara Holloway all the time at the NFL office and don't have access, it's like, how do you get in, right? And so that's what we're trying to do here, is sort of level that playing field, is give these folks a network, give these folks an opportunity to express their talent through job shadows, through the Experienceship. We partner, I'm able to stay with NABJ on the journalism side. We partnered with National Black MBA, 100 Black Men. It's like, we want to make sure that we have as much exposure to people who want to be in sports, because not everybody wants to be. But if you do, we want to make sure that you are walking in the door with the same level of understanding of this business as other people are. And that's kind of where we start to talk about leveling that playing field. It's a highly networked business, so people need to develop their network. So that's what we're intending to do.
It's a business, and we're trying to create businessmen and businesswomen in this sport. I think something very important for people to realize. And again, this is not new to the NFL. I know back in May 2016, the NFL had launched the Strength of HBCUs Impacting Pro Football since 1948 in partnership with 2 conferences at first, and then you guys have since expanded. But as we talk about just the work that you've done since 2016, Natara, what would you say, let's say not just you, but what would you say the NFL is most proud of when they kind of just look back at their work with HBCUs?
So if you do get a chance to see our open house, I would say it's the folks that have gotten jobs. So we have a young lady who just joined us, and we talked about, I mean, yes, we want our student athletes to be drafted. We want them to be looked at. We want them to be evaluated, and we work on that process. We have the HBCU Combine coming up this next season. It got canceled only because of COVID, and so one of those things where we are adamant about that talent. So where I was going with that was, they didn't get drafted, but in the business world, when we were doing hiring freezes, we actually did have students who got jobs from HBCUs.
That's
and
wonderful.
to us, it's like, that's what success looks like, is when you expand the pool so that you're evaluating students from all areas. Not to say one person getting a job or 5 people getting a job or 10 people getting a job is the answer or the outcome. It's more about, how do we expand the pool of review so that it includes those individuals from HBCU. So what, like as an example, our intern actually went to Howard, and he's now going to intern for the fall with the Washington football team.
Nice.
And, he is talented, 4.9 GPA, smart young man. Would he have had that opportunity otherwise from our programs? Maybe. But if we can help him to get that exposure so that he can have an easier methodology of getting to that level as other students have, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that we remove obstacles and barriers to entry for young people of color.
Removing those barriers to entry, like you said, for people of color, which we know, unfortunately, the playing field has not always been level, but trying to do our part to make sure we can at least start to put a chip in, making it more leveled, I think, for all students. And I'm glad that you mentioned the Combine. That's been another big topic of conversation. I know it will be coming up in February 2022. So put it on your calendars. And we're going to Alabama, right? Mobile, Alabama.
Along with the Senior Bowl. Yep.
Looking forward to that. And I think, so what would you say in terms of like the HBCU Combine? Again, we're looking back at the draft. We want to see more players drafted. I think the last 2 drafts, people were saying, well, hey, what happened to our HBCU talent? So, from this experience, and it's not just about the combine talent on the football field, but also, again, going back to the careers that surrounding it, what would you say would be success for the National Football League at the end of the day when this combine is said and done?
The evaluation and the highlight showcase of talent that comes from HBCUs, I think is and giving those students a feeling that I had a chance to showcase my talent. Because I think when I look back as to where that idea even came from, I know a couple of our non HBCU alumni players actually brought it to our office with Troy Vincent. And one of the things that happened or triggered that beyond them calling was a couple of students from an unnamed school called, and they were supposed to have a pro day with a bigger school, and they didn't have success in meeting the scouts. And we were just like, we can do something about this. And so Troy, in his leadership, decided that we should have this combine. And so our group put it together, led by a former player in our office, and we have been working hand in hand just to try to get that off. Again, COVID stopped us from this last year, but this next year we are full force, ready to go. And even if it doesn't, we're not going to let it stop us. Similar to the things that stopped us or that didn't happen in person last year, we ended up going virtual over this past year. We will make something happen in this coming year if there is an issue with COVID. I know we're in the current times, it's really hard to say we're going to be in person, but that's what we're planning for. That's what we're hoping for. And so when we go in February, not only will there be the combine, if I have to give a shout out to the rest of the team as well, what we're developing is for GMs, for head coaches, for our Nunn Wooten and our Bill Walsh Fellowship participants. We're developing an entire curriculum because there'll be so much personnel on site that we'll be doing a lot of networking opportunities for those fellows and for individuals within the pipeline to get exposure. So it won't only be on the field, but it will also be off the field activity that will be happening. That success is that exposure. I can't run the 40 for anybody, but I can certainly make sure that you can run it so that somebody can evaluate your talent.
I love that. We'll support you with all weekend because you also don't want to be running your 40 because then you definitely won't be invited to the next stage of that. But again, it's exciting to hear that. And I think we do have to remember too, at the end of the day, we want to prepare everyone, even athletes at the end of the day, Natara, as much as we want to play football forever and Tom Brady keeps defying the odds, there is going to be a time when you have to hang it up and you're going to want to do something after football because you are more than just a football player. You are more than just an athlete. You know, you're a human being, you're multidimensional. And I think all of these different experiences that you're describing kind of help you find your talent, what you want to do, maybe what you also don't want to do. And really just kind of find, I would say, your purpose in life. That's why I'm excited for that. And I know also in February, we're going to get the HBCU Legacy Bowl. This will be in New Orleans, Louisiana. So you're going to be busy next February. So do not disturb. Natara Holloway is super busy trying to do everything and save the world. And also to that point, it was pretty exciting. So we also just announced the first player ever to be selected for the HBCU Legacy Bowl, an Alabama A&M quarterback, Akil Glass. So congratulations to him. I'm excited to continue to follow all of the players that get named to this week. Lots of exciting events coming up. And then I also know this weekend, we've got a big game going on, Grambling State, Tennessee State University, Black College Football Hall of Fame and Classic. So I think there's so much going on with HBCUs right now. But so basically, if you want to be a partner, Natara, it sounds like just come on. Like
I know. Come. It's so funny because, like I said, growing up in Texas, you know these big games, these big rivalries. And when I think of this weekend, I know, and I've been talking about this for days, especially the last 2 days, how we have so much talent coming out of these HBCUs. But I am a Texas girl, and I just can't wait to see the bands.
It's just true. You got the world famed Grambling Marching Tiger Band. It's going to be exciting. I like you. And this is why I think we love it, because I think HBCUs, you truly get an experience. It's
right. Oh, absolutely.
You're not going to go get food during halftime. You need to be there before or after the game. Because otherwise, you're right?
Exactly. I told the conference commissioners, I said that exact thing. I was like, I know we're on this professional thing, but man, Battle of the Bands is my thing.
Like, it's like purposely when I do football games, and I know you shouldn't do this, but I don't drink like a lot of water or anything because I can't go to the bathroom. Like I need to be there for every part of the experience, right? Because you just know what you're going to experience, and it's a real competition. Like it's a real competition. It's not just who wins the football game. You want to go home saying like my band is better than your band. You want to get your comfortable clothes on. It's all like it's an experience. I tell people all the time, like if you haven't had a chance to go to an HBCU, and now that we have games back, please go experiencing them. Like please, because there's so much talent, such a fun time. And again, we need to remember to support our HBCUs. We have people even repping their own HBCUs.
I know, I see that. And that's, I think, as you said, the experience. I remember as a young kid, it was like, wait, who won the game? Oh, but the band, I can tell you who won halftime. I can tell and as a football person, you want to know who won the game and all the great.
You gotta look. You gotta know who won that because you want bragging rights. You just do. And even when you see the dancers and the cheerleaders, I mean, it's a real experience. And that's when I was like, I'm glad they could do that because that could not be me. This is why I let you with the mic to commentate, but it's just a crazy fun experience. And so it's been so much fun talking with you, and I'm so excited for all that we have going on. Just anything else you would say that people should just kind of follow and realize as we're looking forward to this new football season, and as we just kind of look forward to the NFL's partnerships with HBCUs and beyond?
Well, I would say is that the open house was just that. It was the beginning of this season. We have an exciting year planned ahead of us. From the Madden Tournament to the Careers in Football Forum, to HBCU Week, to the Battle of the Brains. There are many touch points across the calendar. We will be at classics. We will be in the classrooms. We will be virtual. There's a number of things. Like I said, we'll be announcing over the course of the year that are coming up. Our Experienceship. We didn't talk about that, but it was one of those. That's one of our initiatives. That we have to give individuals. To give people experience, so they get to go to Super Bowl. In fact, even though during COVID, that a lot of folks didn't travel down to Tampa. However, we had our Experienceship students there working at the Super Bowl, and so they actually do work. They actually do get to understand what is happening from a day-to-day basis, whether it be PRPE, all of those kinds of things. Like you said, the road and fellows that go with us to Super Bowl and actually interview athletes and folks that are there. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen over this year. Just wait and see. Get on board. It's going to be a year to remember. We did 43 initiatives last year in a COVID year. Imagine what we're going to be able to do as we come out of this, hopefully, and can be back in person. So we're truly excited.
43 times 100 million. I'm already counting it. Incredible. And we talked about HBCU Week. I'm putting it in my phone as soon as the show is over. I will be there for that. And I'm glad you talked about just those experiences, the experienceships that you guys are doing, because I remember still when people ask me, still to this day, what was my best sporting memory? It's easy, hands down, my first Super Bowl. There's nothing like that experience. I mean, pretty much one of the biggest sporting events in the world. And to have that chance in college, I wish I could have done that in college. If I could go back to school, I would have experienced that, because once you do it, you're going to want to go back again and again and again and again. And then also, I think going during a COVID year, I think that also kind of just prepared them for some of the adversity.
Right.
Sports. All of us kind of had to pivot and shift in a COVID year, just trying to really reinvent ourselves and find new ways to do things. And that's what sports is all about, right? It's always evolving. The NFL has remained atop because they're always being innovative, trying new things, seeing what works and what doesn't work. And so I'm excited for that. So congrats to all the students a part of it. To all the new students that will join, good luck. You guys heard so much great information. And so again, just to make sure people have the information, is there a website that they can go to easily find this information? Is it all branded in one place?
Goodness, I should have it. It's on the NFL.com website under football operations website. Our HBCU initiatives, all of our programs and our major programs are there, and our email address if you have any questions. Forgive me for not having that right offhand, but
on the spot, so it's okay.
But yes, we do have that on the website. It's on the football operations NFL.com website.
That is wonderful. Again, Natara Holloway, thank you so much for joining the show. I wish we could just go on and on and on. Then you would have no time to work because I would keep you here forever. And we can reminisce on our HBCU memories and their greatness and everything else that goes on. But again, you guys are hearing from Natara Holloway. She's the Vice President of Business Operations and Strategy for the NFL Football Operations, doing incredible and amazing things. And last question before I let you go, Natara, just kind of talk about how you were able to gain a leadership role in the National Football League. I think we talk a lot about diversity and head coaching and GMs, but let's talk about it kind of in the executive role. I think, you being a Black woman in the National Football League, that can speak volumes to so many. And I think seeing is truly believing. So I'd love for you to just kind of in sharing your story and how you were able to grow within a huge organization.
Sure. Thank you for asking. I actually joined 17 and a half years ago.
Wow. And you still look so young, Natara. No way I believe that.
I joined when I was 2.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
But I actually joined in the audit department because I'm a CPA. I was a CPA back then. CPA, CIAA, CFE was during the time when fraud awareness was a big thing, and so I came to help them develop their accounting and audit department. And so did that for a few years and then moved on to their corporate development group, and then moved on to their consumer products group doing brand marketing and retail. So they had this nerdy accountant doing brand marketing in retail. And then I did strategy for youth football, and now I do strategy for the football operations department. And what is sort of the thread that weaves my career, my 17 and a half year career, is that I took chances and raised my hand for things that were league priorities. So whether that, was women in football, or whether that was youth in football, or just trying to find new revenue streams for football, it was around using my skill set in audit and accounting to raise my hand to do things that were challenging, things that people didn't necessarily immediately think that they would want to do. And so you talk about raising in sports, and especially, it really is around doing what others are not willing to do. And so people look at me and they'll say, "Oh, you're a success, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, but you have to think about all the things that I had to do to get here, and all of the different projects, the new things that we had to develop. And then now for me, my legacy is not around all of those notches on the belt, if you will, but it really is about how do I help to develop the young people that are coming with me. I don't say behind me, I say with me. And so there are so many talented young people that are in the league office, specifically of people of color, who I'm just really trying to coach, really trying to mentor, because they're the next. And they're so brilliant and so bright, and I'm so proud of them. And they'll be the ones that you're talking to the HBCU open house, about in a few years. And that's what keeps me here is making sure that I can help to continue to pave the way, because sports is a very unique space in which, like I said, it's a big networking sport. And so I want to make sure that young people of color are getting that network and getting the opportunities that may not necessarily have been readily available to people 17 and a half years ago.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It's continuing again to grow that pipeline. I think your story is going to speak to so many out there that they too can do it and believe. And again, seeing is truly believing. Natara, we're so happy and so proud of your story. Appreciate you sharing that. And cheers to 17 and a half more years that we know you will get. A special thanks again to Natara Holloway. I think we have her frozen, but it's okay because I was about to let her go. But again, a special thanks for her joining us. I appreciate everyone that has tuned in. You know what? Rep your HBCUs in the comment. And please, we'll send a thanks to Natara. Truly appreciate her time. I love seeing all the colleges and universities. Again, drop your HBCUs in the comments. We're going to make it a battle right now after that great interview. And just to make sure that everyone that continues to follow the show knows, we'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time, all right? 3 p.m. Eastern time, because we are going to be joined by none other than the #1 high school player in the entire country. If you guys don't know this name now, you're going to know it very soon. He is Amari Bailey out of Sierra Canyon. We're going to have a great conversation with him talking about what's next. 18 years old and just look, a true baller. True ballers. He's going to help me break down basketball and a lot of stuff that's going on with that Sierra Canyon team. All right. So bring your questions, bring your energy, and I'll be so excited to have y'all back at 3 p.m. And then on Saturday, we'll be back as well at 10 a.m. because I'm going to let you guys go early and have a great Labor Day holiday, but we'll have the first Black female coach in the National Football League. So we're paying tribute today. We're paying tribute this week, you can really say. We're having trailblazers on and just also the next generation. That's why I'm bringing Amari Bailey on. Amari Bailey is going to be a name that the basketball world already knows pretty well, but I'm telling you, the world will know very well very soon. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Again, Natara Holloway, a special thanks for her for joining us. I know we lost her at the end, but it's okay because I was about to wrap and let her have some freedom. Anyways, we have Natara back. Natara, I was about to let. I was like, you have froze, but we have you back to say goodbye. Take Technology.
I know, technology. I said, this is our third day in the office, so please forgive our internet.
No problem. Again, sorry, we so appreciate your time and just continue to keep up the great work. We so appreciate it. It's been great to kind of follow along with all the tweets. And I'm just glad the open house was a success. I don't know, I can't talk today. Was a success as we know that it would be. So thanks again so much, Natara, and keep up the great work. And again, we're looking forward to more open houses, and we're looking forward to the work that we know these commissioners will be able to kind of bring back from what they learned as well to their conferences and their respective schools, and kind of how this just continues to trickle down into future generations of HBCU graduates, because we know HBCUs produce greatness. Thanks again so much.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, everyone. I'll see you back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Have a great one. Thanks so much for tuning in. And a special thanks to my team and my incredible interns for all of the great work that you all continue to do. I'll see y'all tomorrow at 3. Bye, guys.
Follow Kelsey on social media at The Real K Nelson. Catch episode of Listen In with KNN on YouTube, on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM Fox Sports Radio, on Facebook and Twitter, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN.
Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio now offers official Kelsey Nicole Nelson apparel in a variety of styles for men and women. Fashionable shirts, leggings, hats, jackets, and more. Order now and get 15% off and free shipping. Just enter promo code KNN. Get your Listen In with KNN wearables today. And check out Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio with Kelsey Nicole Nelson.